This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 53, Charlie Brown Holiday Specials. Half a star for nostalgia. This podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Audible is the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with over 150,000 downloadable titles to choose from. For the listeners of the Animation Addicts podcast, Audible is giving you a free 1-month trial of their incredible service so you can try it out for yourself. Since we are doing a Peanuts-themed episode, one book I would recommend is Schultz and Peanuts, a biography. This is a biography about the Peanuts creator Charles Schultz, and it will give you a little insight about his life, his family, and ultimately how Peanuts came onto the scene. If after you've listened to this episode and you're just craving more Peanuts, this is definitely a book to check out. So for your free 1-month trial, go to rotoscopers.com/audible for your free audiobook. Welcome to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers. Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, Don Bluth, and everything in between. We're your hosts, Morgan Stradling, here with Chelsea Robson.
Hello.
And a very, very special guest host, Alissa Roy.
Hello there.
This was probably the most impromptu episode that we have ever done. It's Halloween night when we're recording this, and all of us are basically the coolest kids in town because we're staying inside and we're recording a podcast rather than partying like all of our colleagues, I guess. Yeah. And we just decided, hey, we have this free time. My husband's in the other room watching a football game that's going to go for the next 4 hours. So I'm like, let's talk about cartoons.
This is basically on par with our Swan Princess episode, which we're in for some awesomeness right now.
I am not like the biggest Halloween person, but I love this particular Halloween-related movie. So I was very excited. I was just like, yay, run as fast as I can to go talk about this.
Yeah, so Chelsea and I were going to we were just going to do one of the Peanuts holiday specials. We were going to do It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because it was kind of relevant. And then we decided that's too short. I mean, we won't have that much to talk about. So let's do the Christmas special while we're at it. And so then, as I was preparing with Chelsea, I'm like, we need a big Peanuts fan. And instantly, Alissa came to mind because she covers all the Peanuts articles on the site, and she's a writer on the site. And I thought it'd be perfect to have her because this is her forte.
I'm so excited about this.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Alissa. They've probably read your articles on the site, but tell them a little more.
Yes, my name is Alissa Roy. I am a freshman at RIT studying media arts and technology and getting my MBA. I love anime and movies, and I love just everything about Charlie Brown and Peanuts. So I am here now, and I am excited, and it is midnight, and I am pumped to be talking about these movies.
Awesome. So what made you want to go to RIT?
Pretty much the program. It's a media program. It actually encompasses a lot of different things, but part of it is publishing to books and things like that, and I'm very interested in becoming a publisher someday. So here I am.
Ooh, that's really exciting. So how did you get into animation?
Just ever since I was little, I loved anime and movies. I mean, we were talking about this before, how my older sister has Down syndrome, and she is an absolutely huge Disney fanatic. When she's not watching Disney movies, she is researching Disney movies. You can pretty much trivia her on anything, and she can tell you anything about a Disney movie. Oh, wow. So she really got me into Disney movies and just everything about anime and movies. We would spend nights, just hours watching Disney movies. So she is the main factor in that. I have her to blame.
That is awesome.
So we normally do a little game with our new guests called Catching a Fire. I'm sure you're familiar. Do you want to play?
Yes, I do. It's going to be scary.
Ooh, special Spooky edition.
I need to get spooky somehow because it's Halloween. Well, for me, in 4 minutes, Halloween is going to be over, but I'll try and make it spooky.
Well, here it comes.
Well then, how about a quick round of catch and fire?
Catch and fire? You mean me?
You're the only one with enough courage.
All right, Alissa, here we go. What is the very first animated movie you remember seeing?
Pocahontas.
What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
SpongeBob.
Favorite animated movie?
The Lion King.
Favorite animator or artist?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Charles Schultz.
All right. All right, we're going for classic animation or CGI?
Classic.
Favorite animation studio?
Disney.
Laika or Ghibli?
I'm going to have to go with Studio Ghibli.
Okay. Disneyland or Disney World?
I have only ever been to Disney World, so I'm going to have to say Disney World.
Okay. Disney princesses or princes?
Oh, princesses all the way.
Oh, okay. Heroes or villains?
I'm going to have to go with heroes, even though villains are so much fun, too.
All right. Stitch or Tinkerbell?
Tinkerbell.
All right, now here's some pretty good ones. Mickey, Donald, or Goofy?
Goofy.
Huey, Dewey, or Louie?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with Louie. I don't know why. Just going to go for it.
Just go with it. Just go with it. Okay, what is your favorite animated dog?
Ooh. Oh, this is so hard. How about Snoopy?
Okay. People or anthropomorphic?
People.
The Great Pumpkin or Headless Horseman?
The Great Pumpkin, all the way.
Snow White or Sleeping Beauty?
Snow White.
Summer releases or winter releases?
Ooh. I have to go with summer.
And now our final question, the one that everybody is so excited to answer because they love all of these movies. Hunchback 2, Cinderella 2, or Return of Jafar?
I'm going to have to go with Hunchback 2. I don't know why. When I was little, I did that. I don't really know why, but I did. So I'll go with it just because when I was little, I liked it for some strange reason.
Well, I think we have our first Hunchback 2 ever.
Ever? Wow.
I don't remember that much about it, except when I was little, I liked it. I think it was because the first Hunchback movie, he didn't get Esmeralda, and the second one, he got the girl, so I think I felt better then. So that's kind of the main reason.
All right.
Awesome.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Cool.
All right, well, thank you for playing Catch and Fire with us. We like this game. We don't know why, but we just do.
It's so hard. Just choosing between Disney and Pixar. It's like pulling nails. It's like choosing my favorite child. I can't do it. It's so hard.
Well, thank you, Alissa. Now we're going to be heading on to news.
Okay, so we have some really, really exciting news. This is animation related, but it's very specific to our site. So remember when I asked you guys to vote for the Podcast Awards?
I remember.
Oh, good. Yes. Well, it turns out that everyone was so awesome in getting us nominated that we are an official nominee in the category of movies and film, which...
Imaginary party!
Imaginary party, right? Throwback to episode 1. And that's a huge honor. I mean, I can't even express how honored and excited I am to be nominated. Us, as a podcast team and as a writing team, a lot of the people who are nominated are just kind of like the best of the best, or they just have really huge shows. They're really popular. We're up against some pretty good podcasts. I know there's a few that are constantly on the top of the iTunes charts. But we are the only animation podcast. So what I'm asking all the listeners to do for one last time is to vote for us again, but the voting's a little different. You don't have to manually type in the name of the podcast. So what you do is you go to podcastawards.com and then you submit your ballot, and you can submit one ballot every day starting on November 1st, and it goes till about mid-November. So it's just really easy. You just go and you go through the categories, and you can pick which one you're nominating out of each of the categories, or you could just only go and vote for us in that one category and then push submit. Maybe you're listening to some other podcast that you want to vote for in these other categories, but it's really simple to vote once you get here. So guys, if you can go to podcastawards.com and vote for us every single day, we would appreciate it so much.
This is so stinking cool.
No, I mean, really cool.
I have no words. I have no words.
Very good.
Well, you guys are well deserving of it.
Well, thanks. So the winners will actually be announced at the New Media Expo in Las Vegas during the first week of January. I think it's January 4th through the 6th. So we won't know until then if we won or not. And so Chelsea and I were talking about it, and I think since I'm the closest one to Vegas, that I might visit Vegas for the award ceremony. Fingers crossed that we win, because that'd be really lame if we won and then no one was there to make a little speech or accept the award. So that's the plan, but we need your guys' help to vote. Don't try to stuff the ballot box by, using all these different computers. They have very sophisticated ways to tell how people are trying to cheat, so just do it the normal, honest way. And we'd appreciate it so much. So our next news story, this is about a week or two old, but since Alyssa's here, I really wanted to talk to her about it. And it goes with the theme of the podcast with Peanuts and Charlie Brown. So recently there was announced some Peanuts news. First off, that they are going to be making over 500 shorts, and these are going to be produced by a studio in France. So Alyssa, what are your thoughts on this?
It's definitely very unusual. I mean, I'm excited for them. They have definitely a lot of source material and a lot of potential. I mean, Peanuts is the longest running comic strip in history of ever and ever. So there's definitely a lot of source material, but they definitely have to do it the right way. I'm going to be very intrigued to see what they're going to be like when they come out. Just could really go either way, I guess.
Yeah, did they say what type of shorts these would be? Are these CG shorts or just traditionally animated shorts?
They did not say. I'm very curious to see if they will be, because the actual movie is going to be CGI 3D, and I'm a little nervous about that. I cannot lie. Mm-hmm. So, because everything's just so 2D in that world, so I don't know how they're going to do that. You have to see these shorts.
It will be interesting for sure, to see these characters in their 3D forms, just because they're so iconic. But then that could have been said for Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and the way that DreamWorks has kind of converted those characters, they actually look pretty nice for a modern audience. But yeah, I mean, there's, the diehards who are just like, no, we want our normal, we want, and what really characterizes, I think, the Peanut shorts is how they're a bit, less sophisticated. They're a bit raw and, unrefined on the edges, which adds this charm to them, which is really cool. And then I imagine, this movie, which is going to be produced by Blue Sky Studios and Fox, might be a bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different. I'm trying to stay optimistic, though, because if you look at the very first comic strips, like Charlie Brown and Snoopy don't look anything like they do today. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, okay, this is just kind of the way it goes. Things change a little bit, but I'm still nervous.
Well, another thing that you mentioned that got you really nervous was the director.
Yes, the director was a very unusual choice. So he directed Bridesmaids, and some people had sent me links just saying, oh, he's a huge Peanuts fan. So I'm really hoping that they're right and that he'll be good. But at the same time, this is definitely a different world for him to be working with, because it is both animation and children's, both areas that he hasn't really worked in as much in recent dates.
Yeah, he's traditionally done a lot more adult R-rated comedies, right?
Yes, he has. So it's a little it's got to be a different element for him. I mean, he's obviously had great successes with these movies, but at the same time, it's a very different style. And so I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah, I imagine this being like if Ralph Bakshi was going to come and direct a Disney movie. I mean, people would be way up in arms because of, his history and whatnot. It just doesn't fit with the brand. So hopefully that things will turn out all right. That movie comes out in 2015. So, I mean, it's coming up. It's not, 4 or 5 years down the road like some of these other movies. So hopefully everything's, they have all their ducks in a row and they're ready to make this awesome. Because I'd like to see it continue forward.
Blue Sky, a lot of their stuff is just really good. Their animation quality is really just stupendous. Every movie that I've seen in the last 5 that they've done, I've just been like, wow, that's really, really good. Mm-hmm. And so even if it's just that, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Go Blue Sky. They're up and coming and I like them.
Yes, and they also have Charles Schultz's grandson, I believe, helping to produce the film. So hopefully he'll really want to keep it to the same style and just the same heart of the original film. So I'm hoping that he'll keep it on track too.
Segment is we are going to have a little mini nerdy couch discussion about the Peanuts universe and the characters, specifically Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and all these characters we've come to love. And since we have our resident Peanuts expert here, Alissa Roy, we asked her completely unprepared to just share a little bit about Peanuts and what she knows and the history, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the characters before we go into the main discussion.
All right, so as you very well know, Peanuts did not start as movies. They started as comic strips, and they actually started back, their anniversary was actually just about a month ago, October 2nd, 1950, I believe is the date. And it just started out with a very small little strip of Charlie Brown walking down the street and just some kid looking at him and going, "That good old Charlie Brown, how I hate him." And that kind of just sets up the comic strips. It's pretty much just this boy who is just very awkward and cannot get along in social situations and his dog. And I don't know, these strips are just so great because of their simplicity, as we were discussing before. I mean, the characters have changed stylistically over the years, but they've definitely had that same heart and very basic structure and morals to their stories. The first movie was released in the 1960s, and all these movies were based off of the comic strips because a lot of the comic strips had running storylines and a lot of one-liners. If you read through the strips, there's a ton of strips. You can just read through stories and they'll go on and on and on throughout several weeks sometimes. So a lot of these movies are based off of that.
Interesting. So one thing that I've noticed about the Peanuts, particularly the TV specials, is just the pace of them. They're not fast-paced. They kind of take their time, and then they go off sort of on random tangents.
Yeah.
It's not a very concrete, solid, tight storyline. They'll have a very obscure conversation, and then it will go back to the main thing, and then there'll be just a dancing number just because. And that's something that I kind of appreciate for these, because it breaks the mold about what you expect nowadays, where it seems if something like this were to be released, people would say, "I don't get it. This is weird. It didn't go anywhere." But it just shows the Peanuts way. Is that kind of how the comics are?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you watch these films, especially if you have, I have about half of the comics. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. It sounds so dorky. It's taken me so long to get that many of the comics. But if you just read through them, you'll just be reading them, and you'll read one storyline that you see, let's say in the Christmas special, and then you'll read a comic maybe 3 years later, and you'll see this random little sideline conversation about Christmas that still ended up in the Christmas special. So when they used the source material, they went with the Christmas theme, so you would see conversations that happened within a 5-year span sometimes from these comic strips or characters. they do stay pretty true to the original comic. Sometimes Linus will say something that Charlie Brown said and vice versa. But for the most part, it's all lines out of the comic strips. And, you know, with a comic strip, you can only have a storyline go on for so long before people kind of get like, okay, what's going on with this now? Want something else? So they definitely did have to incorporate things from several different storylines or just random conversations that the characters had. That's kind of the movie. It's just a conglomeration of just all the Christmas conversations or something over the years.
Very cool. So in the TV series, it's obviously a lot more condensed. So what are the characters, or just a few, that are pretty big in the comics but don't make it into the TV specials?
Well, for a while, Shermie, I mean, this was more at the beginning. Shermie was a very big player in the comic strips. He was actually one of the main characters. But then after a while, he just got kind of, you know, pushed off to the side. Schultz would just introduce more characters, but then have to get rid of them. And you still see Shermie occasionally in the movies, just sporadically in there, maybe talking in the background. But he really is not a big player in all of these, which is kind of sad because he actually started out as one of the main characters. You know, you see your main characters, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Lucy, Sally, Linus. They are all fairly big players throughout the whole comics strip series, except, you know, of course, Linus wasn't there originally. He wasn't born until I think about 10 years into the strips. They obviously used the more popular strips from the height of the series in the 1960s. So you definitely see those characters more, but there are other random characters like Charlotte Braun who were in there for a little bit and then just got wiped out after about 10 strips. So actually, that character, a little girl wrote to Charles Schultz and said, I don't like this character, get rid of her. And he just wrote back and said, okay, I'll get rid of her, but I just want you to know you have the death of a comic strip character on your hands now.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's paraphrasing the letter a little bit, but he said something along those lines to her. So there's a lot of various characters throughout the history that don't even make it into the movies.
Did Snoopy have any other relatives?
Yes, he did. He had several brothers. I remember one storyline in particular where he went to go find his mom. He went to the farm to go find his mom, but then he got there and there's just like a cow that he thought was his mom, but it turned out to not be his mom, so he's just kind of sad and left. But he had a lot of brothers that showed up occasionally, like his really thin brother with the mustache from Texas, and just a lot of random brothers that kind of make guest appearances, I would say.
Interesting. I think I know the answer to this, but who is the most iconic character of the series? Is it Charlie Brown or is it Snoopy?
You know, that's a hard one to say. I would have to go with Charlie Brown, actually, because Charlie Brown, in essence, is Charles Schultz. He has a lot of the same anxieties and guilts and fears, and it's pretty much Charles Schultz right there. So I would have to go with Charlie Brown just because he is Charles Schultz, who obviously wrote Peanuts. He is Charles Schultz. So I would have to go with Charlie, even though Snoopy is very iconic in himself. Just for being Snoopy, we all know him too.
That's really interesting. I like when you think about Charles Schultz, like Schultz, sorry. When you think about Charles Schultz,
You could call him Sparky, like his close friends.
Yeah. So we got Sparky here. So when you think about Charles Schultz, he's writing this, and it's almost like, you know how when you like kind of have those voices in your head, you know, you're just like, you kind of just talk to yourself of like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. But like you just kind of have these different points of view. Like I'm thinking mostly in the Christmas special how he's just like, I feel just kind of depressed and just I'm just not happy and I should be happy. And then everybody else coming back at him, why aren't you happy? All these da-da-da-da-da. And it's almost like he's taking his world around him and just putting it in these comics, which I think is very endearing and kind of it grounds it really well.
Yeah. He's just such a realistic character. I mean, Charles Schultz suffered from depression and anxiety and just all these different things. And you see that in Charlie Brown. And I just think that's so, you know, he's just such a real character, but he adds in this humor that, you know, it's so realistic and relatable. So I just love it for that.
So do you think that Charlie Brown will still be that way in the movies?
I really hope so. I hope they don't change him. I'm trying to think. Recently, I read this article. I think it was actually related to Turbo, just talking about how, I'm not sure if even you guys discussed this on the podcast, about how, characters have to be better than who they were and try to fix themselves and change themselves and become different people, and how we really shouldn't give expectations like that to kids. It's just about being the best person you can be when it comes down to it, which is what Charlie Brown does every single day. So I really hope they try to do that, because Charlie Brown is in no way a perfect character, but he's so relatable and you just love him so much for that. So I really hope that they will keep him as is for the most part, because I could relate to him in so many ways, especially in like my awkward middle school phases. I was just like, I can be such a Charlie Brown sometimes. So I really hope they keep him as is.
Yeah, those awkward junior high days. Shudder. I don't know anyone, particularly any girl, who thinks fondly of that time. Comparatively. No. There's like good moments, but if you were to pick between the three, elementary, middle school, high school, I don't think anyone picks middle school.
Definitely not.
So how old is Charlie Brown supposed to be, speaking of?
I'm trying to remember, because he does age a little bit throughout the comic strips, but he started out as 6, I believe, but I'm trying to remember how old he was by the end of it, because obviously he wasn't, 35 by the end of it. I want to say he was 8. I'll feel bad if I have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was 8 by the end of it.
Longest 2 years of your life.
Okay, to round it all off, everybody, I want you to say your favorite Peanuts character and why. Chelsea, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with Linus. He's got some really good lines. I never really got into Peanuts, and so the only thing that I have to go on is the shorts. And so I think of the shorts, I think I liked Linus the best.
There's people that I like bits and pieces. I like Lucy, how she's so authoritative in a way, and bossy, because that's very much me when I was little. But I wouldn't say she's my favorite. Like, I think Pigpen's kind of funny just because he's always dirty, and the cloud is hilarious. And then randomly, Violet Gray, I really like her because of her bun. I'm a girl, okay? But I really like her bun. I think her hair's cool. But I don't know if I could pick a favorite. But I admit that I'm not the biggest Peanuts fan, and really my exposure is just the comics here and there, maybe browsing through the paper, and the specials that I've seen, which are very few. But if I were forced to pick one, I'd say Lucy, I guess, because she's cool and bossy.
It's very hard to choose, because they're all so special and it's so quirky in their own little way and just so funny in their own little way, like Frida with her naturally curly hair. And I really love Snoopy. I know that's the obvious answer, but I just really love him and his imagination. But in the end, I will have to go with Charlie Brown, just because he is so relatable to me and to everyone. So I'm going to have to go with Charlie Brown. That's a hard decision, though.
That's a good choice from the true diehard fan. Getting off of our couches and back onto the couches, because we do these all in the same place. And we are doing our main discussion, and these are the 2 Peanuts holiday specials. Now, were there more than just these 2?
Yes, there were. I'm trying to remember. There's a whole bunch of different really random ones. There's a Thanksgiving one. There's an Arbor Day one, I believe. There's one where they go on the Mayflower. There's a whole bunch of different ones. I can't even remember them all. There's the most random holidays. I'm pulling it up right now. There's a Valentine's Day one. There's another Christmas one. There's an Election Day one. There's an Easter one. Oh, geez, there's a lot. Wow. I'm looking through the list. I had forgotten how many there are.
See,
I haven't even seen them all.
Now, we blame a lot of these studios for trying to capitalize on different holidays with different movies, and we should be pointing our fingers way back at Charles Schultz, because I mean, they tried to hit them all. I mean, Labor Day? Really?
Yeah. Well, like with the Arbor Day one,
the Arbor Day is the one that gets me.
Arbor Day, yeah.
I can't really remember, but I think there was just maybe in one year there was maybe 10 comic strips just about them, and how one time Sally wrote a whole article about Harbor Day rather than Arbor Day, and it's just this funny little joke, 10 strips, but they made it into a whole movie. So I've always found that very funny in itself. I'm looking through the list. There's a lot.
Well, we are focusing on probably the two most popular and famous of the specials. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and A Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yes.
And originally, Chelsea and I, when we did this, we were going to do a really random movie that no one cared about because Mason wasn't here. So we were going to do We're Back, the dinosaur movie from the 90s. But we were really busy today, and we didn't have time to actually sit down and watch the movie. And that's not a movie that I can really just, like, Swan Princess off the top of my head.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so it would have been the first movie.
That would have been horrible. So last minute, we decided to change, and we're like, hey, it's Halloween, so let's do the Charlie Brown Halloween special. I had never seen it before, so it was a good opportunity. I mean, it was like, 22 minutes to sit down and watch it, and so we did, and we actually live tweeted it. So we'll include our little hashtag Twitter stream so you could through our random tweets that we did as we were watching it. And then afterwards, Chelsea was like, this isn't enough.
It really wasn't. I got to the end of it, and I was just like, I feel like there's not enough substance here to be able to fill up more than 10 minutes of a conversation. So I'm like, oh, get something else on here, too.
They're definitely shorter. It would be hard to do a whole big conversation about them.
So then we decided to add on the Christmas special, which is perfect because we're recording this on Halloween, but people won't listen to it until after Halloween, so they might be a bit disappointed. So at least this gives something to look forward to, the Christmas episode, which is in a few months from now. So yes, this is kind of a bit obscure two movies, but this is what you're getting. So
so like it. So The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, was actually the third special, and it was released October 27th, 1966. This was the second holiday special that they did. The very first one was the Christmas special, and it broke all records. About half of the TVs that were on in 1965 on that day were tuned in to the Christmas special. They didn't expect it at all. It's not like they had that many channels anyway at that time, but still, it was a big deal. And so everybody wanted to see it, and it came down to a point where the people at CBS were like, so, Charles, we need another hit for the holidays. Come up with something. So Charles looks around and he starts asking around. He said, well, okay. Hey, guys, want to do something about Halloween? And so that's how that came around. It was literally the people at CBS, the suits, just said, hey, we need another moneymaker. And that's what they got.
So this has kind of become a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Not kind of, it has, because it aired every single year since 1966 all the way through the year 2000 when CBS, I guess, lost the rights or sold the rights to ABC. So ever since 2001, ABC has been playing the film, and I don't know how I missed this of all my years. I never once saw it on TV. I just barely saw it today.
Well, here's why.
Tell me.
Because they show it on Halloween, and what are we doing on Halloween normally?
Except for tonight.
Except for tonight.
We're not home. We're trick-or-treating, we're partying, we're with family. So, yeah, that makes sense why I guess I hadn't seen it. I guess I had, vaguely seen it on TV, and all I can really remember is them going up to doors. That's all I remember. So that's just my original memory is there are a bunch of people trick-or-treating, and they go up to doors. So what are your first impressions of this? Or first memory of this, Alissa?
Unlike you, where I live in the middle of nowhere, so there's only so much trick-or-treating you can do before it's just like, okay, there's no more houses to go to. So I did watch this annually when I was little. And, that opening scene with them running around in the dark and with all the eyes popping out, I remember watching that when I was maybe 4 or 5 and just being so scared of that scene. When you're referring to the part where they're specifically going up and trick-or-treating, I always loved that part, just that iconic line, I got a rock. I love that.
That was awesome.
Well, what's funny about that line is actually, sorry, I just did a little bit of research right before this. I'm not nearly the pro at this movie, but I was reading a little bit on this show, and it said that line, he's like, I just want to put that in there. One of the other animators with him was just like, no, I don't like it. No, 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 no. But the more he said no, the more Charles Schultz was like, no, we're going to put it in there. And by the end, they gave him 3 rocks. And because of that, from then on out, the studio ended up getting candy from fans in his name because they always felt sorry for him because he got 3 rocks in his back.
That's awesome. So this movie was directed by Bill Melendez, and he's actually a pretty well-known name in animation. He was an animator who worked at Warner Brothers, Disney, UPA, and ultimately did these shorts. And the reason he was chosen is because Charles, out of anyone, only trusted his comic book or his comic strip to be turned into a TV special. Bill was the only guy who he was allowed to do it. And so pretty interesting because he kind of has this legacy being attached to these specials. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about the movie. So we'll just go through the scenes. It's really short, so I just saw it just as a first-time viewer. So to me, it was a very simple storyline, much like the Christmas special, which I had grown up seeing. You mentioned, what's the opening scene?
You have them rolling the pumpkin.
That scene is taken word for word right out of the strips.
Oh, really?
Which I love, yes.
So the movie starts and Linus is writing his annual letter to the Great Pumpkin. And he sort of is explaining, does he explain what the Great Pumpkin is to everybody?
Later on he does.
And we're not quite sure why and who this Great Pumpkin is, but it's just his thing that he does every year.
Well, I feel like it's just kind of like how she talked about how Arbor Day was switched to Harbor Day. You know, it's kind of like he's got his people mixed up. Everything that he says is kind of like Santa Claus in a weird twist.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's just kind of totally mixed up his holiday folklore.
Yeah, definitely. There's the line that he says, he's like, he rises up into the air and he delivers toys to all the children. And I was like, what? But it was cute. It shows a little bit of naivete on his part, and he just goes with it. And he's very faithful in his belief of the Great Pumpkin, so that's kind of where the movie starts. Then we move on, and we see the classic scene of the football.
It isn't a Peanuts film without the kicking the football.
Exactly. Well, or the lack of kicking of the football.
Right. I love that part where Lucy's just like, here, Charlie Brown, I have my signed document here. And I'm just thinking, oh, yes, because we believe everything that we read these days. He ends up going for it. She takes it away. She's like, oh, wait, sorry, this hadn't been notarized.
Oh, that was a bummer.
Horrible.
She does that to him every year in some sort of derivation of that. It's so mean, but it's so funny all at the same time.
Now, has Charlie Brown ever been able to kick the football?
No, he has not. I actually remember reading an interview about when this strips were ending, how Schultz was thinking about letting him kick the football, letting him finally do it, and then he was just like, nah, he's just never going to do it.
True to character. So this is Halloween night, and they start to go trick-or-treating, and apparently a huge deal of a costume in the 60s, which is the sheet ghost. Because like 6 of the kids are dressed as ghosts, which I don't know about you, but I remember my day, if you had the same costume as one of your friends, that was really embarrassing.
Well, and even more so nowadays. I mean, it's just, I saw on Facebook the other day, a friend of mine, he posted, he was just like, we should just stop calling it Halloween and just call it cosplay month. I was like, it's so true, because that's all we do. We just have bigger and better costumes. It's never going to be just the sheet anymore.
Yeah, it's true. That's like a hipster thing to do nowadays, is just to be the sheet ghost.
Right? Yeah, totally.
So the kids are going out, and Charlie Brown is there, and he gets a letter to a party a little bit before, and it was like really sad. It sort of reminded, it was his first letter he'd ever received, and Lucy was trying to say that, oh, you got the wrong letter, you weren't supposed to get the letter, you're supposed to get the letter telling that you weren't invited to the party, right? Is that what she says?
Right. There's 2 lists, Charlie Brown: the people to invite and the people not to invite. You were put on the wrong list.
It reminds me of like The Simpsons, the No Homers Club. Where it's like, but what about him? His name's Homer. And he's like, yeah, it's called No Homers. We can have one. Totally unrelated, but it's Simpsons, so it fits.
That's the Stonecutters one.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
And so they're going trick-or-treating, and first off, as he gets this letter, I just feel very nervous, because when the cool kids invite you to the party, it's not a good thing. So I'm already anticipating this isn't going to turn out well for him. So he's here with the cool kids, and they basically are making fun of him and using him, which cool kids typically always do. They're mean. And they turn him around and said, "You're going to be our model." So he turns around and they start using a Sharpie on the back of his bald head and basically trace out a jack-o'-lantern face with the triangle eyes and nose and squiggly mouth, and then they trace it onto the pumpkin. And it's kind of embarrassing, and I feel really sad for him in that moment, but it's kind of the theme in these movies is that he always gets picked on, children are really mean to him, and it never stops, really. I mean, there are little moments where they're nice, but I feel really bad for Charlie Brown.
You know, isn't
for no reason either. It's just random and mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you look at something like that would totally be dubbed as like bullying these days, and like we'd get letters and it'd be, totally cut, and I don't know. It's just really funny how in the 60s it was just such a different world. We've changed so much in 50 years. Wow.
Okay, so then they go trick-or-treating, and this is the famous, I got a popcorn ball, I got a candy bar, I got a rock.
Oh.
Which I don't ever quite understand. Who or why he got a rock, which was really funny.
I always wondered about that. Like, who just has rocks to hand out to children? I never got that, but I love it all at the same time.
Well, I also don't understand why when they go to the same house, they all end up with these completely different variations of candy. It's like, usually you go to the house and it's like the Twizzlers house, where they just have Twizzlers, or the Snickers and Twix variation. And so you end up with something like that. But no, one person gets this, one person gets something really crazy. I'm like, man, this person just had the ultimate grab bag, including the rock. Which,
sucks for you.
Other than the Great Pumpkin, I think is probably the most iconic line or part of this movie, just from what people were tweeting and what I could see. So then there's this storyline, and Alyssa, I would like you to explain it to me, because I must have been answering the door for a trick-or-treater or something, but then there's this random plot line of Snoopy as a pilot, and they kept kind of going back to it and revisiting it, and I was completely lost.
Yes, I can't really remember exactly how this flowed in the comic strips, but this was a thing that Snoopy would do, just where he would dress up as different characters, and him fighting the Red Baron was one of the more iconic characters they dressed up as, and often he would imagine himself as some sort of fighter fighting the Red Baron and just being in the trenches of France and just doing all this random stuff. And it was a skit that went on throughout several years. I mean, just randomly a storyline would be thrown in there about that. So in the movie, they included that. I can't remember if it was exactly it tied in with Halloween in any way, shape, or form when the skit first started. But yeah, I'm not quite sure where that came from, in all honesty. I really liked it in the movie. I mean, it was very random. I agree with you there. But he's just, if you read the comic strips, he's always dressing up and doing random things. He'll be a penguin or a vulture, but this fits in with his personality very well. And I just always appreciated that they threw that in there anyways, even though it is kind of random.
Yeah, so for fans of the comics, it's completely normal, expected, and desired that you have the Snoopy subplot.
Yes, like Snoopy is just always doing the world's most random things. He's always dressing up and just being very imaginative. And I always kind of appreciated how Charles Schultz did the characters for this, because in many ways, Snoopy was like the opposite of Charlie Brown. He was just very much the imaginative, just go with the flow kind of guy, just do whatever you want, while Charlie Brown was always stressed out about something. I always appreciated that and how different he made the two characters. So while it didn't really flow the best in the movie, I would definitely agree with you there. It did make perfect sense for his character.
Cool.
Well, according to my research, this was actually the very first time that Snoopy actually flew in any way, shape, or form. And so Sparky said, I wish that I could have him fly. And Bill was like, well, I'm an animator. I can do that. Let's do it. And so this was the very first time that they turned Snoopy into kind of more of a silent film star.
Ah, interesting.
Did not know that.
The next part, we were kind of in and out of this storyline, but it's Linus and Sally, and they are waiting for the Great Pumpkin, and Sally believes him, and she's ready to see this Great Pumpkin, and she waits all night. She gives up her trick-or-treating, and they wait and wait and wait, and nothing happens.
How could it not happen? It was the most sincerest of all sincere pumpkin patches.
Yeah, I've never
There's
heard
no hypocrisy anywhere.
Not as far as the eye can see.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, I've never heard a pumpkin patch described like that before, but now I'm going to be on the lookout for some sincere pumpkin patches.
No hypocrisy.
See, that's one of those kind of very Peanuts moments, I guess. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's one way to look at it. So this is kind of where the Snoopy line and Linus's storylines come together, and then, we see something coming up out of the shadows, and we think, oh, here it is, it's the moment, it's the Great Pumpkin, and then we realize, oh, that's just Snoopy, and really very quickly after that, the movie ends, and it goes back, and Linus says, oh, I didn't see the Great Pumpkin, I guess I'll just have to wait for next year, and then very abruptly, it's over.
Wah, wah.
Which for me was very disappointing. I wanted a bit more resolution. I felt like, I was really let down. I wasn't expecting the Great Pumpkin to be real. Maybe it was something else, or it was, pretending to be the Great Pumpkin, but that never really came to fruition. It was like, oh, well, does it exist or doesn't it? And it left me kind of wondering who this Great Pumpkin was, which I think is why so many people love this movie, because they watch it each year, in a way hoping for the Great Pumpkin, or each Halloween they hope for the Great Pumpkin to come, and it never does, right?
Right. And I'm trying to recall from the strips. I remember one particular strip, like, nobody ever really seemed to believe Linus, and it was always a little fuzzy on the details of who the Great Pumpkin was, but I remember one strip where Linus slept through the night, and then Charlie Brown woke him up the next day and said, oh yeah, this one guy, I just heard over the radio, this one guy in Kansas or something, he said the Great Pumpkin came to him and gave him all these gifts, and Linus was so mad, and so it made it almost seem like the Great Pumpkin was real in one of the strips, so I appreciate that. It just, Linus hadn't found the most sincere pumpkin patch, so.
Aww, that's cute.
Well, at this point in time was where I said, Morgan, we need more. This is going to be a very short podcast. And so we moved into the Charlie Brown Christmas special. Yay! So, as I said before, the Charlie Brown Christmas special came out on December 9th, 1965. And it was initially sponsored by Coca-Cola, like all Christmas things are. Like the Halloween episode, CBS had originally had all the airing right up until the year 2000. And then from 2001 on, it's been with ABC.
So this was actually the first of the specials. This one came out first. Then there was another one in the middle called Charlie Brown All-Stars. And then it was The Great Pumpkin, which there was only about 10 months between this one and the Great Pumpkin. So the fact that they managed to get 3 shorts within the year is pretty impressive production-wise. This is the one that I've definitely grown up watching and seen many, many, many times. So I'll have a little bit more to add to this conversation.
I'm watching this one other time.
Really?
Yeah. I watched this one other time, and it was in my 8th grade choir class.
Oh, wow.
It was like right after choir concert, which I believe was the one I fainted at. So I was.
Oh, what a memory.
I know. So, like, I don't think that I was totally engaged in the whole day. Anyway,
have you ever told the story about how you fainted?
Not on the air, I don't think.
I think it's time, Chelsea.
You want me to tell this story about how? Okay. So it was my 8th grade choir, and I had been sick going into it a couple days beforehand, but it's choir, and so you don't have like a grade. The only grade that you can really get is from the concert itself. And so if you don't show up to the concert, your grade drops like from an A to a C. And so it's just, you don't miss the concert. And we get us all up there. We're all on the risers and everything. And all of a sudden we're singing, and it comes to the song Ave Maria. It was so good because this girl, it was her very first solo ever, and she was so excited leading up to it. And all I remember is I just start seeing white spots, and they start growing. And then I just remember watching her kind of like walk up to the microphone. And then kind of as an aside, I see myself, and I am thinking to myself in the third person, thinking, I wonder what the audience is thinking by me walking down the stairs. I don't remember what happened next, but what we can see from the video is that I basically stumble down these steps, kind of like a Jell-O legs, and it looks like I'm walking up to the microphone as well. And so everyone's just kind of like looking at me like, why is she going down there to steal this like solo from this girl who's never had a solo before? I just kind of stumble around a little bit, and then I just fall straight into the piano, and I go whack right as she starts singing her Ave Maria. Oh, it was fantastic memory, I'm sure. And then from then on out, that was what everybody knew me for.
Nice.
So that is my story.
Well, thanks for sharing, Chelsea. Now when you refer the fainting incident, everyone will be in the know.
They all know my fainting incident.
They're all cool kids now, but not the mean cool kids. The super rare, nice cool kids.
My mom says I'm cool. But yeah, going back to the Great Christmas Special, I only remember this watching it the one time, and it was right after the choir concert. So really, this was my very first time sitting down and watching this movie. So novice beyond novice.
Wow.
Well, I love this movie. It has, like I said, a lot of nostalgia to me, and yeah, just even from like the very first line where the children are singing "Christmas time is here," it's just everything about Christmas time and the songs and the music. It's just a very, very happy time. You know, I imagine
yes.
For a lot of people, it's a depressing time at the same time, which we will learn with Charlie Brown. He has a major depression issue. So a lot of people maybe relate to this because there's the happy-go-lucky people who just love Christmas and everything's so magical. And then there's the people who are actually, depressed during Christmas time because it's a very stressful time at the same time. So very wise, I guess. It applies to all people. But yeah, I guess I hadn't seen enough Charlie Brown to realize that this was just his character, that he's just sort of a sullen, downtrodden, depressed character, which is very odd for a children's character. I guess people would say this is a children's TV show, but kind of an interesting take. I don't imagine there'd be a character like this nowadays. Do you?
Probably not. I really hope that he'll be like this in the next movie coming out, though. I don't want them to change him.
You mean you don't want him to be all jolly and upbeat in the movie?
Christmas is awesome!
That would be very strange for his character.
Yeah, I really don't think they will. And that's why it's going to be interesting, because you'll see this character who's just always not really had a hard life. He's just sad. And so, we continue the theme of people being really mean to Charlie Brown, and it never gets old, and it never stops for the most part. The children are ice skating, and we hear that song "Christmas Time is Here," and it's a really nice little intro. And then we start with Lucy, and she's asking questions, or she has her question booth, right?
Psychiatry.
Yes. It's very iconic. And what does Charlie Brown say to her?
This was actually the part where she reminded me of you the most, Morgan.
Oh, no.
well, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Okay. Well, we are directing a play. So you're now going to be directing the play and you're going to be doing this. And this is what we need. Everything's all together. It's all this. Because Morgan really is the driving force between most all of our stuff. Like, she's just like very on target. And that's just how Lucy seems to me. Very on target.
Well, you and Mason are the creatives. And so you're more of the free spirits, and I am the School of Hard Knocks director who just ties everything together, hands you your schedule, and tries to reel you in. And I imagine Alyssa's that way, too, because she's the business student.
Oh, yeah.
Very much Team Lucy. So, yeah, he's kind of upset about commercialization of Christmas. That's a really big theme in this movie, and I can call it a movie, right?
Yeah.
It's a movie. Short film. That's a big theme, is he's really upset. It's just so commercialized, and he's really depressed. And so she sends him on his way and says, hey, you're going to be our director. And I'm thinking, okay, well, wondering why you don't have a director yet. But it's okay. And why it's not someone who's maybe a little older. But this is apparently a student-run production from start to finish, and so he's really excited, and he goes, and then they start handing out his role as the director, and then they start handing out parts. And it's just funny the different people that they pick to be the characters in the nativity. Yeah, so Frida is Mary, right?
Yes.
And
yes,
she's just making a comment about how naturally curly her hair is, and if Mary had that. And, and then, who else is who?
Wasn't Linus the shepherd? Schroeder provided the music.
Mm-hmm. So this is the part where Lucy goes up to Linus, and she's like, okay, you are going to be a shepherd, but you're going to have to lick it at home. You can't have that. Why do you always want to take my blanket away? What's up with that? And he puts it on his head and uses it. It's like, it's a good thing I'm smart enough to know how to keep it next to me. And it's like, someday, Linus, you're going to have to leave that away. And it's like, well, maybe I'll turn it into a sport coat. I'm like, that's awesome. I really like Linus. He's just really good.
He has a good attitude about it. He's
right.
like, no, I'm going to turn these lemons into lemonade. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, but this was the part that I was like, awesome. When Lucy was just like, the beautiful sound of cold, hard cash. And it's like coins in her little jug. I was like, that's awesome. And then Charlie Brown's walking around still, and he sees Snoopy's house, and he's like, even my dog has gone commercial. I don't believe it. But I was pretty impressed with Snoopy's ability to decorate.
Oh, yeah.
In one of the comic strips, I'm trying to remember, he had all these paintings by famous artists in his doghouse and a pool table and stuff. He is just the world's coolest dog.
Joe Cool.
Dude, it's really funny, though, as I'm listening to this, and I think this is just because I went to school for recording engineering, as I'm listening in here, I can totally hear the edits of dialogue. The cuts. I'm super particular when it comes to stuff like that. But I was just like, even Peanuts has the cut sound. So it makes me feel a little bit better about myself when we have random things that aren't totally perfect. I'm like, dang it. Okay.
Well, this short was notoriously known for not necessarily being low budget, but just really low quality. I mean, you mentioned the different parts of the dialogue. Sometimes the children were not professional actors, so the sound was pretty poorly mixed. I don't know why, whether it was just inexperience or just lack of technology or whatnot, but with the children particularly, some of them were too young to even read the lines, and so they'd have to read them one line at a time. So they would cue them and they'd say the shepherd. They'd have to say one line at a time, and they'd kind of break them together. And even to the point where Sally's voice, Kathy Steinberg, there were even some words that she couldn't even say, so they had to do it syllable by syllable and then cut them together. Yeah.
Shut her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed is, particularly when Linus is reading the nativity story, he'll talk, and it's supposed to sound like he's kind of on stage, so there's kind of this echoey, but he would talk and there'd be this weird sort of echoey, but it just low quality, and then it would stop when he stopped and be completely silent. And there was no resonance between what he was saying, and it just, if you listen, it's not very good. And for a while, Melendez said he was very embarrassed about this short. And the fact that it was shown year after year, and it was just very poor. I mean, he did his best, time constraints and money and whatnot. It was done on a shoestring budget, and that is obvious. Even though Coca-Cola sponsored, they didn't sponsor that much, apparently. He was just really embarrassed, and they wanted to fix it. They wanted to kind of like update the audio and whatnot, but apparently Charles Schultz vetoed it every time, and he said, absolutely not, we're not fixing this, we're leaving it. And I'm glad for that, because there's so much charm in how unfinished it is and rough around the edges.
I agree.
It definitely gives it like that nostalgic feel. You just watch it and you just feel nostalgic. It's just a very different feel.
So then Charlie Brown is assigned to go and get a Christmas tree, and they're all raving about, like, get an aluminum tree. And I'm wondering, like, was this a thing?
I think it was in the 60s. It was a style of tree that was popular for some strange reason, I think.
That is really funny to me, because I know there's, like, the trees nowadays that are spray painted certain colors, like the white tree and whatnot. But aluminum, that is definitely very novel. So he is supposed to get the best tree ever, and comes back with this little shrub. It's really sad. So he brings it back, and he's like, it's cute. It's the perfect tree for us. And he convinces himself that this is a good tree, even though it's basically like a twig. But it's very iconic tree nowadays. People go and they will buy the official licensed Peanuts edition tree that has the one Christmas ornament on it.
Yep, I have that.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, it has like a little Linus blanket to go around the bottom, and it even plays a Christmas song.
See, that's what I should do this Christmas instead of buying, because I don't care whether I have the real tree or not. Like, fake trees are fine to me because they don't have all the needles and you can just keep reusing them. But my husband loves the real tree, so we got a real one last year, and I should buy like a really obnoxiously Charlie Brown tree and see what he says. Then there's just a little moment between Lucy and Schroeder where he's just playing on the piano. In Great Pumpkin, he plays on the piano for like 3 minutes. It just keeps going and going and going. So that was like another one of those very Peanuts random moments. But he plays a song here, and Lucy is like, play me a song. And he starts playing different things, and she's not into it. And she's like, like Jingle Bells, And so he plays a very nice rendition of Jingle Bells, and she doesn't like it. And so as he's switching to these different arrangements, I love how like his piano turns from piano to organ to like a little tinker toy piano, like dee 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 dee. And then that's the one, and she yells, "That's it!" So a very awesome moment. And of course, Charlie Brown comes back, and everyone hates his tree, which is sad.
That is sad.
Well, yeah. So they're really criticizing him, and surprisingly, Linus is full of a lot of wisdom. And so he goes to the front of the stage, and he proceeds to tell the story of the birth of Christ. It's a really cool moment, because he's bringing it back to the original meaning of Christmas and letting people know, like, this is why we're here. This is why we're even here doing this play. And I like it. And that very religious element is in it. And even way back in the 60s, the network executives didn't want that in the movie. They wanted to cut it. They didn't think it was appropriate, but they kept it in. And I'm glad, because I think that moment of all of them is one of the standout moments in this short.
Yeah, it definitely ties it together. This is one point where I actually really appreciated the lack of sound after he speaks. So right after he's done, there's just one more of those empty moments of just no sound at all. For me, I really liked it, because it was just like, it kind of got you centered as you listened to it. And then it went back into the story.
Yeah, this was a great scene. I loved it.
So right after this, they go back and he sees Snoopy's doghouse, which was previously decorated and all commercialized, and he won first place. And he's really upset and kind of mad that even his dog, and he won. So he takes one of his ornaments off, and it's this red ornament ball, and puts it on his tree, hoping to, this tree isn't that bad, I'll decorate it. And it's just, I've killed it. Because the tree kind of topples over because it's too heavy.
What I love about that tree is that he keeps like winging around, and you see all these little needles fall off, and you just sit there going, okay, all the needles would have been off by now. It just keeps falling off, but yet the same number of needles still are on the tree.
Yeah, that's true. So he does his Charlie Brown moment, which, has been played out in Arrested Development, looking down, head down, sad, and he wanders off, and the kids come back, and I'm not quite sure why they just start wandering toward his house, but they do, and they end up in front of that tree, and they kind of feel bad about, I guess, maybe how they treat it, and they're like, well, this tree isn't so bad after all, and so then they basically steal all of Snoopy's decorations and put it on the tree. And this always boggled me. I didn't understand how, just by putting decorations on the tree actually plumped up and got some volume and more pine needles. Animation.
Yeah, animation.
But the tree has been reborn. And then it ends. Charlie Brown comes back. And then they yell the very classic line, "Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!"
And now I have closure.
That's the end.
Oh.
And it ends with them all singing. I just love that so much.
Yeah. I will vote that I liked this one a lot better. It starts with singing, it ends with singing. It's Christmas focused, so it's very happy and it's uplifting. It's a good, nice little short, and I really, really like it. And, it's just funny that, the quality is very poor if you really look at it and dissect it. But to me, I really see past all that. I don't look at the animation. I don't look at its flaws. I just look at the story, and that's the reason, to me, that I think this has lasted for so long, because it really, deep down, is just a very simple, good story that, then continue on with your celebration.
I agree.
Out of the two, which ones are your favorite?
Oh, Charlie Brown Christmas for me.
Yeah, definitely the Christmas one.
And the third for Christmas.
Yay.
Not very surprising. So what would you rate these two?
This one's really hard for me to rate. As you know, anything with nostalgia gets an extra star. I don't know. It's hard to rate these things because I refuse to rate.
All right. Chelsea refuses to rate. Alissa?
So probably for the first one, I mean, again, like Chelsea said, you have that nostalgia factor, which totally probably makes you more biased, just making you love the movies even more. So Charlie Brown Christmas, I will definitely give 4.5 stars. I know it's not perfect, but that nostalgia factor just really bumps it up a lot. I really enjoy the Halloween one. I will admit the ending could have been better, but I don't know. It's a little random too. I'll give that one 3.5.
Okay, so I will give, like you, the Christmas special 4.5 stars. It's just really charming and well done and well thought out and simple. And for the Great Pumpkin, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. There's no nostalgia factor for me, which, we all know that nostalgia always adds half a star or so. But since it's not there, I just really, as a first-time viewer, I couldn't really see what was so great about it. Why people always talk about this one and quote this one and get excited for this one. I just didn't see it. Kind of let down that there was no Great Pumpkin, at least that we saw. They didn't resolve it in a way that I appreciated, because I was kind of mad. So for that reason, 2.5. Guys, thanks for listening to this episode. Very impromptu, spur of the moment. And we want to thank Alissa for joining us literally at the last second. We messaged her, hey, I know this is a long shot because it's Halloween, but are you available? And she stepped up and she was awesome. So thanks.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
No problem.
Yay, Alissa!
I'm glad we could have our resident Peanuts expert join us on this, because I was very impressed, I'm not going to lie, when I was like, hey, let's do a random nerdy couch discussion. Can you do it? And you started spouting off all these dates and people and facts, and you really are a true Peanuts fan. I am very impressed.
Well, thank you. I was quite a Peanuts nerd, and so I'm glad that has finally come in handy.
So all these years of planning finally paid off.
So, anyone who's listening to this, anytime you see a Peanuts article on the site, most likely it's going to be from Alissa, and now you have to check it out because she really, really knows her stuff, and those articles are awesome, along with all the articles she does. They're always well thought out, and what I love about your articles that you do is they're not like the standard news stories that you would expect. You always find really cool, interesting things to talk about, which just slipped through our radar and we didn't see, and then you find them, and then I'm like, oh, that's really awesome. So you're a great little investigative journalist.
Well, thank you. Pardon me. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, a Frozen story. Oh, wait, someone's already done that. Oh, well, I guess I'll have to go look into some more.
Yes. So we didn't talk about this, but we've kind of been very obsessed with Frozen recently. And by the time this podcast comes out, we will have started our Frozember, which is our celebration of all things Frozen in anticipation for the release of the movie, which comes out basically a month from now in November. So Alyssa's participating in that. I am, a lot of our writers. So every single day on the site, we're having a different Frozen article, not necessarily news, but just something fun, whether it's an opinion piece, whether it's just a GIF post, or a comparison between Frozen and some of these other Disney movies, or the history of Frozen, kind of one of the ones that Alyssa's going to be doing, which I'm looking forward to. So it's going to be really, really fun. So if you like Frozen, check it out, because we've kind of become like the place to go for all things Frozen, and we like it. But I'm sure there are some people who are just so over Frozen, they can't wait for this movie to get released, because then things will kind of go back to normal and there won't be a Frozen news story post basically 2 times a day. All right, guys, thanks for listening to this episode. You can find more of the Rotoscopers at rotoscopers.com. That's where you can find all of our news we post on the site, where you can read Alissa and all the other news writers' stories. The podcasts are posted here. If you want all the show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com. Everything we mentioned will be included there. And also all of our social links for Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, all the fun stuff. You can find me, Morgan Stradling, on Twitter at Morgan Stradling. You can find Chelsea on Twitter, and she is Chelsea Robson. And you can find Alissa on Twitter, and her Twitter handle is this_is_Alissa. And that's ALISSA, right?
Yep.
So is there anything else you want to plug or you want people to know about?
I recently started a blog called thiselegantawkwardness.blogspot.com, and that's pretty much just me being me outside of the realm of animation, I guess. So check that out. I'm enjoying writing it. It's nothing very big, but it's fun. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So big thank you again to Alissa for joining us. And don't forget to remember, by the time you listen to us, to vote for us for the podcast awards. We need your vote. We appreciate your vote. We thank everyone who already did vote. Okay, so until our next episode,
we are the Rotoscopers.
Woohoo!
Yay! Actual party.
Real party.
Wait, there's a hum.
Might be me, because my computer's like on fire practically, because it's like kind of on a pillow, but not really. But anyways, I'll mute it when I'm done talking.
This girl is on fire.
Okay, so the movie starts, and Chelsea.
Sorry, I had to. I've been wanting to meet you since we got your letter so long ago. So, yay!
Well, I'm glad. It feels like I've known you guys for a lot longer than I have, I guess, just because I've been listening to you guys for so long. So it's just like, yay, I get to talk to them finally.
I love about what
we're real now.